Welcome to it, sports fans. A different ball game. I am, as you can see if that's my name at the bottom there. I don't know if people know that. That is my name over here. Where's it over here? That's my name over there. Mbulelo Tinta, that's me. This is a different ball game. Welcome to it. CliffCentral Sport, Big Shot Media, and we've got an awesome guest tonight. I am joined, of course, by Woude Muller, and then she has got James Dalton with her tonight. Woude Muller, what is happening?
Hey, geez, I've actually missed you guys. It's nice to be here. Finally, we can finish off our World Cup 15, so that's very exciting. Looking forward to doing that. And yeah, besides that, I got really sad news. My favorite bar in Cape Town is closing down. And yes, I did when my younger days go to a bar. I know that I'm really old now and I don't really go out anymore, but back in the day, I did.
Wow, what's the bar, huh? These are sad times if you're if you're a booze bag.
It's called Aces and Spades.
Oh, okay.
And please don't make me laugh. I did boxing for the first time in 8 months yesterday, and I am very sore. My ribs are sore, my arms are sore, my stomach, my everything is sore.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Don't make me laugh. Please don't. This is
Yeah, tough times. I mean, where are you going to go and get sloshed and now your ribs are hurting? These are tough times. These are tough,
very tough.
I mean, tough
times.
Economic times, COVID. I mean,
yeah.
So you are playing baseball, Woude, as well. I mean, you're actually doing all of it.
Trying to play baseball, not very good at it. Tomorrow I am in the ring with Jack Parrow, actually. So the boxer Mike Wade Hammond is putting us through our paces tomorrow in the boxing ring with Jack Parrow. So that's going to be very exciting. And Waterboy, I am not talking about my weight at the moment.
Wow, people are piling on. These are tough times. Listen, Woude, let me rescue you. I'm doing now what you call throwing out a rescue line. People are getting off Woude's weight. Her booze bag lifestyle days are being shut down. So there's trauma from that. She got uppercutted in the ribs. Woude, it's a lot right now. I'm gonna let you cool off because I know you got another guy who's given everyone he's ever faced a tough time. Great to have the World Cup winner, and great to have you back, Woude. Great to have World Cup winner James Dalton back. I'm really looking forward to tonight, Woude, because you guys are talking. I think you were breaking it down just now. Let us know a little bit what you're going to talk about.
So we are picking our final tight five for our World Cup winning final 15, and then we're also going to give you our pick for our captain and our coach, and then James and I are picking I've asked James to pick his final 15 or full 15 team also. So I have kind of worked my way down the team, but I have asked James to also pick his. So at the end, we will see the comparisons. Who did James pick and who did I pick? And if any of you want to send your World Cup 15 in, please send it in so we can compare it to ours.
All right. So to be clear, that isn't who's your favorite rugby players of all time.
No.
There must have been World Cup winners. We've done that three times. You've got plenty to pick from. It's at least 45 people.
Exactly. So it's the best player in the position from the respective World Cups wins from 95, 2007, and 2019.
There you have it. Looking forward to that, Woude. Cannot wait. Let's... so see you in a bit, Woude. The skip pass is coming up, of course. Woude, James, joined by James Dalton. But hey, let's start off with this. So there's been this story going around, but before we get to the segment, I kind of want to chat a little bit about this, right? Hey, in life, everything in power is about leverage. Like, if you don't understand leverage, you can never get the upper side or the upper hand in a zero-sum game. And in a zero-sum game, it's in order for me to win, you have to lose. So if you don't know what a zero-sum game is, in order for me to win, you have to lose. And in every negotiation, you'll hear the word leverage. So in life, there's a golden rule. There's a golden rule. Be who you can afford to be. And in the last few days, I've seen the notion that Barcelona are about to part with the greatest footballer of all time. Right? I saw this tweet and I thought to myself, it's madness. right? The young kids call this, what he's doing, there's no ways. There is no way on earth. I don't care what the media says. I work in the media. I understand what sports teams do. Is when anything gets out, one side wants it out. In this case, it's Leo Messi's press people. This is what the kids call a flex. He's going nowhere. But this is him saying right now, Barcelona are on their knees. He understands that Bartomeu is on his knees. Nobody in Catalonia wants him. Bartomeu's projects have been a disaster. It's been an abject disaster over the last 5 years, certainly. And over the last 2, it's just been madness. He's lost superstar after superstar after superstar. Messi understands he has the leverage. Everybody's on his side now. This is a flex. What he's saying to the football club is, now you have to choose. Because he's gone through, there's 3 phases in every sportsman's career, right? In every sportsman's career, there's 3 phases. I want to get there, so I'm hungry, right? I'm in my peak, thus I'm the star. I want to build my legacy and move on. Leo Messi's not an idiot. He understands what Barcelona means. He's not an idiot. The golden boy, the one-man team, he gets it. He's going nowhere. This is a flex to Barcelona just to say, if you don't start playing by the rules, because I haven't had a say for the last 5 years and it's been a disaster, and you let go of Neymar, I let that one go. He came out and said, I don't want Neymar to leave. Do what you must. 200 million, it was too much for them. It was too much for Barca. He's got to go. It's been a disaster since. The Luis Suarez thing has become a disaster. Bartomeu has gone on to show he has no business model. He's signing all sorts of players. He's gone off the script. Messi's had enough. But if you think he's going to Man City, you're either an idiot or you don't understand how the media works. It's only one of those 2 things. Understand this. In life, it's all about leverage. This guy has all the leverage. Bartomeu. So here's my prediction. And I love saying I told you so. Bartomeu will be fired within the next week. You'll see much of the Barcelona board resign. And I think you'll see one of 2, Carles Puyol. Expect some of Messi's earlier teammates and Catalonia legends to rebuild the dressing room, build around Ronald Koeman, and we're going to be back on this thing. Bartomeu is out. Leo Messi will choose the board, and I predict a Carlos Puyol type of figure will be coming in. Simple as that. But Messi is going nowhere. He's not an idiot. This is a flex, folks. Go on Instagram. If you don't know what a flex is, if you're old like me and you think a flex is just flexing your arm, the young kids are using it differently. This is Leo Messi saying, I'm the guy now. You need me more than I need you. And Barcelona know they're in that position. And listen, he's a killer. You don't get to the top without being a killer. These guys, we got a guy who's a World Cup winner just now. He'll speak about it. He'll let you know. To get to the top, you got to be a killer. There's a difference between people that are good and great. What separates you from being a World Cup winner like James Dalton and top of the game like Leo Messi, when it's time to put your, proverbially speaking, when it's time to put your foot on the throat, you put your foot on the throat. You want to win. You want to be cutthroat. He's a killer. He's going to have to eliminate Bartomeu because now he's gone from the 3 phases of any sports star. I'm hungry. I'm in my prime. It's about legacy. Leo Messi's not having his legacy be the last 5 years. And he's not leaving Barcelona. He understands what it's worth. He needs the brand post-football. He doesn't want to upset Catalonia. It is his second home. So he's not leaving, folks. He is not leaving. And before I hand over to Woude and James, I think there's something important that I can't avoid. Right, Man United fans, some say the biggest football club in England. You have to say title-wise they are. They are in a pickle. Harry Maguire's in a situation in Greece. Because you get arrested, that's all right. Right, you get arrested, you can live with it. But now there's all sorts of bribery charges. I hear it has been downgraded to misdemeanor. It's a mess. He's now got politicians coming out to speak, saying all he has to do is apologize. His sister's involved. But here's the thing about life. A mentor of mine once said this to me, and I've always believed it, but she articulated it brilliantly. Every corporate organization, and think about this wherever you are, if you really want to know your value to a company, if you really want to, but be careful in life because the questions you ask, right, is never ask a question you don't want the answer to. But if you really want to know your value to your corporation, go and ask them where you are in the pay scale. Because corporations are always talking to us. And that language is called money. And when they pay you the most, they expect the most from you. So don't ever let people talk with their mouths, right? Always follow the money. If you get the most money, it means I expect the most from you. Now, people aren't going to tell you that because we play this little Machiavellian game like, oh, it's never about money. It's always about money. If I have to say it's not about money, it's always about money. Harry Maguire is a world record signing at Manchester United. You know, when I pay a world record fee for you, by the way, do you know how many excuses you get? That many. You get 0 excuses. And in life, listen, this is across the board. We do it with good-looking people. I've said it before. We let them get away with more. Be who you can afford to be. If Harry Maguire was Rio Ferdinand, Nemanja Vidic, these types of errors, no problem. But he's not half that player. He is not, I'm sorry. So what it means is production tolerance. We can't tolerate a guy arrested as our captain. Now, I've heard in the papers, I think they're managing the PR. If I'm Ollie, especially if you're trying to rebuild the culture, this is the kind of stuff you want out the dressing room. Some people may think I'm crazy. I think Harry Maguire may have played his last game for Manchester United. I think he can be forgiven by English football, but this one is, this is a bigger problem than just football. This is now a geopolitical problem. You have the government of Greece knocking on Manchester United's door. Look, organizations will tolerate anything. They'll tolerate anything you do. The one thing they will not tolerate is when you start to affect their bottom line. When you start to affect their bottom line, and when a footballer is alleged to have been fighting with the police and then bribing the biggest brand in the world, what does that look like in China? What does that look like in America? I think, might sound nuts, I think Harry Maguire's played his last game for Manchester United. When corporations pay you the most money, he's a world record signing. Corporations are always talking to you. You get the most money, you have the most responsibility. They won't tell you that, right? We call it in philosophy inference. We won't tell you that, but it's inferred. It's like, come on. We both know what's happening here. Harry Maguire's in big trouble. And if I'm Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and I'm building the football club in my image, and it looks like that's what Ollie's trying to do, he's uprooting all of the old guys, getting them out. Alexis, get the hell out of here. Lukaku, get the hell out of here. I want no egos in here. The old United way. Ollie looks like he's building the Fergie model. The manager is the king of the club. And I believe Harry Maguire has played his last game for Manchester United. Dave, we've got any questions before I hand over to our crew tonight? Let me know what you think. I think Maguire's played his last game because Ollie looks ruthless. Production tolerance, Harry Maguire, I'm afraid. In life, be who you can afford to be, my friend. Be who you can afford to be. Listen, in terms of be who you can afford to be, here's a guy who was arguably the best hooker Springbok Rugby's ever seen. Right? He's joining definitely the best rugby presenter in this land. Coming up after this, the skip pass, Woude Muller is joined by the legendary James Dalton.
I am not entirely sure what Mbolelo was drinking before the show came on. There must have been something very special in his tea for saying such great things about me. But thank you, Mbolelo. And I also think I'm the best rugby presenter in the world, in the country, in the world, whatever it is. But I can't believe that we have come to kind of the final of picking my World Cup 15. It's been such a great segment for me to do. And I really look forward to picking each player from the respective World Cups. And it really made me think of why I wanted to pick them, why I needed to pick a certain player, and having to compare two great players to each other. So before I bring James up, Dave, let's just quickly run through the respective players of the different World Cups. So we are picking the tight five tonight. So starting with our tight head prop, number 1, 1995, 2007, 2019. We have Osterrand, and Beast, Tendai Matawarira. I mean, Osterrand, absolutely incredible. The fact that he played in 2 World Cups for me, it kind of just puts him ahead of all of Beast. Beast for me is an incredible player. But Osterrand playing 80 minutes, in fact, 90 minutes in 1995. Coming back 2007, he played a full 80 minutes again. And that just says a lot about a guy. And if you even look at that picture of how good he actually still looked in 2007, fit and strong, absolutely incredible. Going to our hooker, we have got from 95, Rousseau, Johan Smith, and Bongi Humbanambi. Johan Smith was obviously the captain. Chris Rousseau, 95. We can ask James about the circumstances that made him the starting hooker. And James can tell us a little bit more about that. And then obviously Bongi Humbanambi, who really upped his game and deservedly started in that 2019 World Cup final. We go to our list. We have got Bali Swart, CJ van der Linde, and Frans Malherbe. All of them were pretty solid, not great in my eyes. Frans, probably the best out of the 3, and also better than the other guys who were picked for the 2019 World Cup. Most of the guys in the teams kind of got picked because they can play both loose head and tight head. But France probably has to take it for me in that one. And then we go to our locks. Number 4 lock, the good big Kobus Visser, the crazy enforcer Bakkies Botha, and Eben Etzebeth. I'm going with Bakkies Botha on this one. Purely, I think, because the combination between him and Dave, you can bring up number 5 for us also. The combination between him and Victor Matfield was just absolutely amazing. The two of them just worked so well together. Hannes Strydom, we know him and Kobus Visser also made a great lock pair. That's also the reason why Mertens? No. Who was number 5? Anyway, move to number 8, and Wadani Rousseau, same in 2007, there was no space for him on the locks, and he moved to number 8. And then for me, Eben Etzebeth and Lauded, I've never been a fan of Lauded. I don't think he's that absolutely amazing. He kind of fills the role, but he just kind of looks like a bit like a lump kind of player. Eben Etzebeth, yes, he's an enforcer. Yes, people love him. Yes, he looks crazy on the field, but I don't think he's really improved as a player in the entire time that he's played. He's kind of just played exactly the same. Nothing in his game has changed. So for me, my tight 5, before I bring James up and he can tell me who his tight 5 is, for me, it will have to be Osterrand, Bongi Humbanambi, Frans Malherbe, Bakkies Botha, and Victor Matfield. James, do you agree or disagree with me on my pick of tight 5?
Good evening, Woude. So nice to be with you again. And it's not cliched, but time certainly does fly by.
I was saying,
on your note of your favorite bar closing, I just hope at some stages when you had a urine sample done, you never found an olive in it.
What? Oh my gosh, I'm not even going to comment on that. Although I did put a post up today and I was like, I'm so sad about the Aces and Spades closing. And then I got all these messages from people and they're like, oh, Vody, this is where we met. Oh, Vody, this is where we had our first kiss. Oh, Vody, this.
Oh,
like,
my God.
What? And I'm like, what have I done in this bar that I can't remember?
You don't even remember.
Back in the day, back in the crazy days.
Thank God. Thank God we all grow up at some stage. And some of us never do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so coming back to your pick.
Yes.
Okay, so for me, without a shadow of a doubt, number one would be my loose head would be Osterrand. I mean, I think his stats, winning 2 World Cups, mammoth of a man, good ball carrier, big tackler, and just the presence of him spoke volumes. Hooker, I would go for Bongi, merely because, not that I dislike the other 2 hookers. Chris Rousseau obviously played second fiddle to me most of the time. John Smith, we give him his credit. He was a great leader, great captain, but was never the best player in his position, even in his province, against even Chris when he went to the Sharks. I would choose Barley Swart as my tight head, simply because Barley had such a good work ethic. He was a typical tight head prop. He played towards the ball. He did his hard yards. His tackling was solid, and just an overall well-balanced scrummager, and very, very good in the line-out as well in terms of his support. The locks, I would go with Buckies and Victor, simply because of the amount of times they played together, and they were a formidable combination. But then you look at the likes of Akobus Visser and Hannes Strydom, who played against the likes of John Eales in the opening game, Garrick Morgan, the other lock for Australia. Then you look at when they played in the final, you look at the locks of Ian Jones and Robin Brooke. And you just look at the caliber of those players that they competed against. And then I look at who Victor and Bucky's competed against in that World Cup. And there were not any big names that they played, even in the final. So that's my motivation on my choices. But you're pretty much on target.
Oh, amazing. So, so
that's why you do what you do.
I just think, just coming back to Victor and Bucky's, obviously you know a little bit more than that, but everyone talks about Bucky's as the enforcer and as being this very much this presence on the field. To me, I think what also made them a great combination is the fact that Victor kind of just calmed him down a little bit. Victor, I felt, was a bit more his head was screwed on a little bit better. He could make the decisions in the big times. He was captain a few times for the Springboks, as we know. So I just think, for me, that combination was great. Bucky's, yes, he was an enforcer, but sometimes he went a little bit overboard. So he wasn't really enforcing on the game itself. It was kind of more his antics off the ball that kind of gave him that presence a little bit more, and maybe pretty similar to what you did, seeing as we know what happened in the 95 World
Leave
Cup.
me out of this.
And of course I'm going to bring you into this. So that's one thing that for me, that Bucky's was maybe not, if it wasn't for Victor, Bucky's would probably maybe not be as good as he was. Or am I looking at it completely the wrong way?
Yeah, look, it's very difficult to tag a player and call him an enforcer. So it's like the good cop, bad cop role that you play. So Victor was more of a glamorous lock. He was very, very good in the lineouts. He was skillful. He liked to play out wide, whereas Bucky's again played towards the ball, very effective at scrum time. And I think in terms of an enforcer, I actually think Bucky's played that role incredibly well. And if I compare him to Eben, I just think Eben is all puff and no paraffin, to be quite honest with you. I think the most, and I'm sorry, I'm bald. I see someone made a comment about global warming and my baldness, but I take that as a compliment. But I just think the best part of Eben's game sometimes is his gelled hairstyle that he runs on the field with.
Well, I personally would probably pick Archie Snyman over Eben Etzebeth.
I would agree with you on that.
Yeah,
I think Archie Snyman is a very well-balanced rugby player, and he contributes in all ways.
Yeah.
He's good at ruck time. He's good in the lineouts. He carries the ball. He runs with the ball. He makes tackles. He's overall well-balanced.
And
James, that's what you want in a player.
Just coming back to your bald head, my dad always says that the Bible says that God counts every single hair on your head. My dad's also bald, so he says, I'm just making it easier for him. So just giving him less work.
What did I say? Hair does not grow on a busy highway.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so that's what my dad always says. And for me, like I said, Eben has kind of always been there. He's a big guy. So people think, a big guy has to be a good player. But for me, he hasn't improved at all. He hasn't improved in his game. He hasn't changed in his game, and he hasn't matured in his game whatsoever. So the fact that he was still there, like I said, for me, Archie Snyman is probably my starting four in the Springbok team at the moment, who I would start with him. Maybe I'm not a fan of Louet. I think he's been very inconsistent. You can't count on him. So for me, that's why I would have said I would rather play Pieter Steph de Toy on lock, because I think he would do a better job than the locks would do at the moment, and I think he would actually be more effective at the lock than he is at 7.
I would agree with you. I mean, if you look at how he's adapted from originally as a lock to Rugby Player of the Year as a flanker, now you put that skill in the lock position. I mean, it's just it's a what do they call it? A fairy tale lock combination, if you want to.
Yes, I think the lock combination between Archie Snyman and Pieter Steph de Toy would actually work pretty well, in my opinion.
There we go. Let's tick that box.
That's my opinion. So I've also asked James to pick his captain. So we'll just pick the captain and we will pick the coach, and then we're going to pick our final 15. Well, I've already picked my final 15, but I haven't seen James' final 15. So captains, we obviously know it was Francois Pienaar, 95.
I sent it to you. Did you not get it?
Well, I didn't really look at it. I sent it to Dave, so Dave did it. So I'm going to be just as surprised as everyone else to see it. So obviously our captains, we had Francois Pienaar, we had John Smith, and we had Siya Kolisi. So I think there's a lot of similarities between Francois and Siya, two very important World Cups in South African history. Obviously, Francois being part of the 95, the first one, post-apartheid. You were part of it. You know all about it. You can tell us a little bit more about the effectiveness that Francois had in that time. And Siya, obviously, in his own right, being the first black captain, everything that he had to deal with on and off the field. But I feel like John Smith was the most protected captain in all of that. I think Jake White took most of the flack of all the players and of everything. So I think he kind of could just get on the field, do his job. There was nothing off the field that he needed to really deal with. So he kind of had probably an easier road than Francois and Siya. So I guess the option would really be between the two of them. And if you look at them, who would you choose?
Yeah, look, choosing a captain, unless you haven't played underneath him or with him, it's very difficult to be accurate in terms of what makes good captaincy and good leadership. For me, I would, without a shadow of doubt, go with Francois Pienaar. Simply from, if you look at from where we came from, we were infants in the World Cup stage. It was the first World Cup that we were participating in South Africa. We had the Madiba effect. We landed up beating the world champions in the opening game, which led to us winning the World Cup against who were at that moment the absolute favourites to win on that day. You look at Siya. For Siya, there's a lot more of a transformation aspect for him. And I say this, and I think I'm going to get ridiculed for this, but I don't think at times with even John and Sia, although they were captains, they weren't necessarily the best in their position.
But Francois was there.
But they were there, yeah. So Francois, I think for me, fulfilled the role in all ways, in terms of he was the best open side flanker. He led by example. At his time, Bodie, at his time. Although there's a guy like Ruben
Wasn't
Kruger.
Tian Strauss? Wasn't Tian
No,
Strauss?
he was the eighth man. He was the eighth man.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
he was supposed to be the captain, no? Wasn't there a whole
Well,
situation?
look,
Wasn't there a whole situation between Tian and Francois, and they didn't really get along with each other, and Kitch just got along a lot better with Francois, and Tian, for that reason, got let out of the team completely,
well,
even though he was a very good player.
No, absolutely. But, you had Mark Andrews, who converted from a lock to eighth man in the World Cup final and had no skill set or experience in that position, and he fulfilled that role perfectly. I think it was for Kitch, he chose his Transvaal players who he knew he could trust. He knew what their character types were. He knew what their personalities were like. And I think Francois was the captain that suited him the best to carry his messages across. I think bringing Tian in as another strong leader might have upset the dynamics. And you can't have that. You've got to have your players believing in the captain, not walking in the corridors. Instead of talking to each other, you'll end up talking about each other. So, yes, it was unfortunate for Tian, because he was the best eighth man at the time in the country, but it all worked out perfectly. We ended up winning the World Cup. So enough said about that.
Yeah. So I haven't made up my mind which one I'm going to choose, but I feel like I need to choose one. And because you pick Francois, I'm going to pick Sia, because I think it's pretty even. I'm not the biggest Sia fan, so I'm putting it out there. I'm not the biggest fan, but I do think, I don't know, he brought a country together. Maybe he does too much off the field and not concentrating.
Okay, but we're not talking politics. This is rugby. The best player, the best captain, yes or no? This is not a political show.
And I'm going to go with Francois. Anyway.
Good goal.
And as coach, we obviously had Kitch, who you played under. Maybe you can give us some insight into him. You also, Jake White.
Well, I played under Jake as a schoolboy. Yeah.
And you played with Rassie at all.
And against him many times.
Against him. And so Rassie in 2019. For me, it has to be Rassie Erasmus. I think what he has done with the team, bringing the team together where they were 18 months before the World Cup. I didn't believe in Rassie before. I was very anti him. I didn't like him as a coach. I think he realized that he needed to change and he needed to adapt. And he looked at it, he took it, he brought the players together, and I think he did really well with what he had and how he changed it around. And also dealing with the whole sickness thing, dealing with the whole transformation situation. I think he did really well. And so for me, Rassie has to be the pick. But you, obviously, I think Kitch also great.
Look, I've got a fondness for Kitch that I will always have till the day I die. I mean, he was the one that believed in me. He gave me the nickname Bullet. I think I've heard worse nicknames in my life, so I was quite happy with Bullet. Then obviously there was Jake, who I played under as a schoolboy. Also a very good coach, very knowledgeable, very insightful. And he was able to get that team in 2007 to wrap around him, believe in him. And, they almost stumbled on their way to winning the 2007 World Cup. But they did not. You look at Rassie, now you look at Kitch. Kitch came in a very, like where rugby was regarded as like an Afrikaans sport, a racist sport, an apartheid sport. So he had that thing to deal with. And he managed to unify and unite a nation in winning a World Cup, the first one in South Africa ever that we ever participated in. But then you look at Rassie, and that's my pick, is Rassie, not because he's my mate or he was my teammate. I just think in terms of his maturity in selecting such a well-balanced bunch of players, he was the first coach that said, you know what, I'm going to choose the best South African from regardless of where he's applying his trade. And that will make South Africa great again. And the minute he did that, and he brought all the players that were South African together and that were the best in their respective position, I believe that was one of the reasons we won the World Cup. And then obviously the transformation. He chose the best player regardless of race, age, whatever. And again, they raised the World Cup trophy. So Rassie is my coach.
Okay, so we have picked everything we need to pick, and now I need to see your team. So Dave, if you can bring that up for us. That will be really interesting for me to see. Geez, could you pick any more? I'm surprised you didn't pick yourself from 95. How many 95 players did you pick?
Oh, come on, buddy, don't exaggerate like that.
Gosh. I'm really surprised you didn't pick yourself as the hooker. I mean, with the amount of players with the number of players you picked from 95 and with your ego, I'm really surprised by that.
I've picked them because if you go look at the caliber of players they played against in the 95 World Cup, coming in as newbies in that world stage, then I think that will speak for itself.
Okay, so let's just quickly run through it for our podcast viewers. So James's picks, I'm going to start at number 1. We've got Osterrand, number 2, Bongi Mbonambi, 3, Bali Swart, 4, we've got Bakkies Botha, 5, Victor Matfield, 6, Francois Pienaar, 7, Johan Smith, 8, Donnie Rousseau, 9, Joost van der Westhuizen, 10, Joel Stransky, 12, let's go, 11, Brian Urbana, Emilia Reza, 12, 13, we've got Japie Mulder, 14, James Small, and 15, Percy Montgomery. Can't believe you didn't go for Andre Joubert at 15. I'm very surprised by that.
Look, the only reason I did not go for Juba, the Rolls Royce, is if you look at Percy's statistics in the World Cup, they far excelled those of Andre Joubert. Although, in my opinion, I think as a game changer, Andre Joubert was a player that could change a game within seconds with individual brilliance. Yet I chose Percy based on his overall kicking ability. I think he missed one kick in the 2007 World Cup.
Yeah. So let's just quickly run through mine for the podcast viewers, and then I will disagree with James. So my final 15 pick. So I started at 15 a few weeks ago. So I'm going to start there again. So my 15 was Percy Montgomery, 14, Cheslin Colby, my other wing, Brian Urbana, my center pair, and I cheated on this one, and everyone knows this because I made the rules for this one, Jean de Villiers and Jacques Fourie for my center pair. My halfback pair, my 9 and my 10, Fourie de Preer and Henry Pollard. My 6 and 7 locks were Skalkberger, Johan Smith, and my 8th man, Dwayne Vermeulen. My lock pair, 4 and 5, Bakkies Botha, Victor Matfield. And my front row, Osterrand, Bongi Mbonambi, and Frans Malherbe. So I did go for Henny Leroux at 12 because I think the other 2 players that played in respective World Cups could not even think about choosing them. But Jean de Villiers has probably been the best center that we have seen, and he at least played in a World Cup. So that's the reason why I could pick him. So if I have to go, just looking at the team quickly and where we actually disagree. So for me, Andre Joubert is definitely the most all-round 15 that we've had in the respective World Cups. So obviously Percy Montgomery, Willie Leroux can't even be part of this whole conversation. So Andre, for me, is the Rolls Royce. He was very all-round, but Percy changed the way that he played to fit in with the way that they needed him to play. So if he didn't change the way he played, he would never have been picked under Jake White because he was quite flamboyant. He was quite all over this, and that's what caught our eye. But he realized, I need to change. I need to calm down. I need to play more conservative. And he did that. And like you said, his statistics in the World Cup final were just absolutely incredible. I saw you pick James Small at 14. Why? Why, when you have Cheslin Kolbe and JP Peterson in that position?
So Cheslin, without a shadow of a doubt, I always speak about that individual brilliance where a player can turn a game on its head. But I think for me, if you go look at James Small's performance against Jonah Lomu, you look at his performance against David Campese, real big names of the game of rugby in his generation. I just think James's overall presence on the field, his camaraderie, his belief in his teammates, his belief in his own ability, his belief in a never say die attitude. That was my experience. Cheslin is great, but you've got to remember you judged over a long period of your career. So it doesn't mean you've had one or two great games in a World Cup. You're necessarily going to land up being a legend. And I want to touch on this with you. Heinrich Brousseau, I actually went and we had this debate about him. Only played 23 tests, I think, and 5 starts against the All Blacks, and he was on the winning side each and every time.
Yeah.
But again, unfortunately, I think he only played, 23 or 26 tests?
23.
But, very few people would actually mention his name in a pick like this. So that's my motivation for choosing James Small.
So I think it's a very fair point that you touched on, is that people judge them because they've played for such a long time or because they played in the World Cup that they were the best players. We had a lot of players, obviously, in South African rugby who didn't play in a World Cup final, who didn't win a World Cup, who were really brilliant players. But this is just kind of the pick now is from the respective World Cups. The reason why I picked Cheslin is, yes, he hasn't played that much rugby, but in the time that he has played, he has proved what an incredible impact he has on the field. And it's the same as with Heinrich Brousseau, is that he hasn't played a lot of test matches for South Africa, but the times that he was actually on the field, he made such a massive change in individual brilliance in the team. And sometimes you just need that little bit of individual brilliance for them to win. JP Peterson was a brilliant wing, and he was big and he was strong and he could run. But I think he was quite a lazy player for me, and he couldn't really, I couldn't see that individual brilliance out of him. And that's why I picked Cheslin Kolbe over him.
You see, also, buddy, on saying that, you've got to also judge a player. It's not always about what you do when you have the ball in hand. You judge a good rugby player, what does he do when he doesn't have the ball? What does he do defensively that's good? And that's where players set themselves apart when you look at an overall balanced rugby player. Because, anyone can get the ball after 2 or 3 individual brilliance, or brilliant moments, and simply fall over the try line. That doesn't make you a good rugby player.
Yeah. So it's also, that's where the try assists is very important, obviously. And the people so we both picked Brian Abana at 11. I don't think we need to say much more about that. Makazole Mapimpi played brilliantly, but he started his rugby career too late. And it would have been interesting to see if he did start playing rugby earlier, if he actually would have been because I think he improved so much in this time that he has played. And unfortunately, I don't think we will ever see the full effect of what he would have been able to do. So Brian Abana is that. Your 12, Henny Leroux. I agree with you on that one. I just cheated. Henny Leroux was the most all-round 12. Yeah, was just the most all-round centre out of the 3. So obviously we had Henny Leroux, we had Frans Steyn, and we had Damien de Linde. Again, for me, Damien can't be part of this conversation, and anyone that thinks he can, I don't even want to talk to you. So Henny is definitely the most all-round. Frans could kick. He did what he needed to do. He came into Jean de Villiers' spot, and I think he did great, but he's not that for me. Henny was definitely that, and you can tell us a little bit more, but what made Henny such a great player in that position? Him, and actually the centre pair between him and Japie Mulder, because you picked Japie at 13.
Again, I go on looking at the caliber of players they played against in the World Cup. In Australia, they played against... it was, I think, Jason Little and what was the other, the centre that played? It was Michael Leonard fly off. His name eludes me. Then you look at when they played in the World Cup final, playing against Walter Little and Frank Bunce, who I think hold the All Black record as a centre pairing. So I based it on looking at, again, the caliber of player that they came up and competed against in a World Cup. For me, Henny was very, very intelligent. He was a very clever player, defensively very sound, very intelligent in the way he managed the midfield. Yapi, for me, was just defensively such a big impact player, a strong runner with the ball, always got over the advantage line. However, I think I would agree with you maybe with Jacques Fourie that he was probably a better finisher. But then I think he doesn't have all the other talents and skill sets that a Woude Muller has, as I mentioned to you now.
Yeah, I think, for me, Jacques is just, I think when I think of this, I think of the brilliant try against the British and Irish Lions in 2009. And I think he was just defensively really good. He was a classic outside centre for me. And when he was given the ball, something was always going to happen. And he just looked majestic playing for me. And maybe it's also, I was very young when Woude Muller played. So I guess I didn't really see that brilliance of them. So you would look back now on the games and it would look great, but it wasn't in the professional era, so it's very different. So and
well, they worlds apart. I mean, like you said, the one is 1995, and then you get 2007, and then 2019. The game
what
changes.
I like about this conversation is the fact that you see it so differently to the way that we see it, because you were there and you experienced it and you experienced their presence on the field, which we probably didn't. So for me, I'm obviously closer to the 2007 and 2019, and a big reason why I've picked more of them is because they played in the professional era. It would have been interesting to see what the 95 players would have done if they played a little bit later.
Well, how about this? Picture this as a thought. Imagine you could get the 95 team to play against the 2007 team, the winner of that play the incumbent world champions, and see who plays. I mean, can you imagine that was could be a reality? I mean, that would just be, phenomenal entertainment.
No, that would be really interesting. Okay, so you picked I don't think you guys want to play against them now. I think your age might let you down. So you picked Joost van der Westhuizen and Joel Stransky as your 9 and 10.
To be honest, they are both so on par. In all honesty, I think I just out of loyalty picked Joost, but in saying that, he was a great scrum half. He was an icon of the game. He was a Blue Bulls legend. He was a Springbok legend. His stats, try scoring stats, speak for themselves. He was massive on defence, where Fourie, in my opinion, wasn't as good a defender as Joost was. But Fourie de Preer was a very good. What I liked about Fourie was his kicking ability, and that's where Joost wasn't able to do that proper box kick. On a what they term it, on a tiki, whereas Fourie de Preer's kicking skills superseded that of Joost.
Yeah, and Joel Stransky at 10. So that's an interesting choice for me. I think he wasn't the first choice fly half originally, but what's his name?
Well, but why did you choose Andre Pollard?
Well, I just feel I feel Andre Pollard is the most complete fly half out of the three, and what you expect from a fly. So Joel Stransky, for me, I think he executed Kitch's game plan perfectly. And yes, Henny had to move away from that and move to inside center because Joel was so good at that. And we will never forget the drop goal. We will never forget the points that he scored. And I think he was good, but I think Andre Pollard was just his physical presence and his ability to attack the gain line for me, just puts him over them. And his goal kicking up until the semi-final wasn't great, but he stepped up in the semi-final and the final. And I mean, yeah, so for me, it was just a bit more complete player. His defense was great. Yeah, I still don't think we have seen everything from Henry Pollard that we might need.
If you had to take every game that Joel played in 95 and every game that Pollard played in 2019, I can tell you now, Joel would get 10 out of 10 for overall performance in every game that he played in that World Cup, as opposed to Andre Pollard. In my opinion, he didn't play to his strengths. I don't know if he was told to stay deep in the pocket, but the minute, and you are right, he started attacking the ball, attacking that space, he was a different player. But, one set skill doesn't make you great either. And his kicking was at best very average. And yes, the reality is everybody's always going to remember that drop goal of Joel Stransky. And then you go look at his game performance against Australia in the opening game at Newlands. I mean, that was an 11 out of 10 performance from him.
Yeah. Yeah, made very, very fair points. But then if we have to really think of the best fly half in the country ever was, is probably Henry Honeyball. So these are probably not the best fly halves. They just did their job.
What about Nas? Nas is going to be so offended, Bodie.
And we're going to talk about Nas. If Nas could tackle a player in front of him, then he can come into this conversation. Not until he can show me that he can actually tackle. So, and then we go to our back row. So I went with Schalk Burger, Johan Smith, and Dwayne Vermeulen. Obviously, for me, Heinrich Brousseau is still a very, very good number 6. For me, Schalk Burger did what he needed to do. I just think Schalk sometimes just got a little bit too crazy and he didn't really think about everything that he was doing. Dwayne Vermeulen, most complete 8 in South Africa at that point. You picked Donnie Rousseau, and it's an interesting choice because Donnie, the same as Andrews, wasn't actually an 8. They both moved from lock to the number 8 position in the finals. And then Johan Smith, brilliant 7, definitely pick him over. And he was definitely, again, like I said, the most complete 7, which we needed in South Africa. And an absolutely brilliant player.
Well, I mean, he was also actually played alongside Rassie, towards Rassie's end of his career. And I think he learned a lot from Rassie. He's an outstanding player. Great tackler, great ball carrier, gets over the gain line. The reason Schalk Burger, to me, great rugby player. I mean, again, if you take statistics, and which actually sometimes irritates me when people talk statistics in terms of test matches played, because the game's become so commercialized now. As I said, you can come off the bench, be number 2 in the country for the rest of your career, and you can play 50 tests and no one will even know who you are. I chose Francois Pienaar simply from, I thought of who would also be a good leader and a good player and a player that was competent and consistent. And for me, Pienaar was very consistent. I found Schalk sometimes to be a little bit messy and tidy, legs and arms and that, doing a lot like a hamster on a wheel, but going nowhere.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Schalk, great rugby player, but this is a talk show.
And then our biggest difference in the front row, obviously we've both picked Bakkies and Victor, we've spoken about that, is Bali Swart and Frans Malherbe. So Frans for me is probably also not the best one, but he was the starter in 2019. I don't know, Kuniet Oosthuizen might be a little bit better. Vincent Koch, I don't know. Knowing in the number 3 jersey was really incredible. I think
the light doesn't come on with one of those names for me, to be quite honest.
So
France. No, sorry.
Yeah, no. I think he was good in the scrummaging. He held up the scrum with Beast on the other side, and he did what he needed to do. But there was no brilliance, I think, for me in any of them. I personally didn't see enough of Bali Swart, and what you were saying before, and obviously scrumming next to him up front is obviously the reason why you picked him, because you saw exactly what he could do.
Look, France is a big boy. He's a good scrummager, but that's all he is. He runs around on the field like a chicken with his head cut off. He contributes absolutely nowhere. He hardly carries the ball. He makes very, very seldom does he make an impact on the game in any way. But again, the game's not only about scrumming. Yes, it is a good platform to attack from. But again, if you looked at overall set skill, Wally Swart would beat him hands down.
And then Bongi, we've spoken about Bongi before, and I think the way that he has matured as a player. And you tell me about a hooker. Why did you pick him as a hooker, and not Malcolm Marx or John Smith why did you pick him?
Oh, look, I picked him simply because he was underrated. Nobody really gave him a chance against Malcolm Marx. Everybody thought he'd play second fiddle. And what did he do? He surprised all of us. He
and
really
his lineups were 100%.
Well. 100%. And he scrummed well. He tackled well. He played also towards the ball. And I like that in a rugby player. A rugby player must play towards the ball. When you start running away from the ball, you get no continuity and you make no impact. Yeah. So the more players you got attacking the ball, in my opinion, the more chance you have of winning a game. And Bongi, for me, fulfilled that role. And I think he surprised everybody because Malcolm Marx was the best thing since sliced bread.
Was he?
And before the World Cup. And then all of a sudden, what happened? He was
Marx's lineouts were never on point. What is your main role as a hooker? To throw the bloody ball into a lineout. And if you can't
get as much money as you can.
But isn't
it? Did you catch the joke?
I'm not going to comment. If you throw, James, don't make me laugh. I was just saying earlier, my ribs and stomach muscles are sore. I can't laugh. But your main goal and your main role is to throw the ball straight into a line out and get your jumper. And how many times has Marx missed that? Yes, Bongi made that one mistake where he missed it, but it was actually admitted that it was his call and they were too slow to get to that ball. If you remember when Bongi threw completely over the line out and they scored a try. So that was his one mistake that he made, but his lineouts were on point. He's scrummaging. For me, he is my starting hooker, and Marx will have to really work on his lineouts if he wants to walk back into that team.
Look, I think Malcolm became too one-dimensional. He relied too much on the turnover ball. Going and playing that fetching role, and he started losing or not focusing on his other requirements as a hooker. And again, I agree with you. Bongi's lineouts were on target, on par. In my generation, they would always tease a young hooker when you came into the team, where the senior locks would say to you, it's never the lock's fault. It's always the hooker's fault.
Oh, it's the hooker's fault. Yeah. And then obviously our final play. Tell us a little bit more about Os. What made him so special? And what made him be able to play in 2 World Cup finals? And like I said before, in 2007, managed to play 80 minutes as a prop.
Well, what more do you say, buddy, apart from phenomenal? I think also the fact that Jake believed in him and actually called him out of retirement, and that he was able to man up to it and excel after being out of the game for a while. Winning 2 World Cups, there are very few people that can emulate that. And also just was very quiet, silent personality, but on the field he had like a split personality. He was strong, he was impactful, he was big on tackles. He worked hard towards the ball. He was ferocious at ruck and scrum time. There's so much more I can say about Os. But he was also just actually is still a wonderful, wonderful, honest and sincere human being.
So, I'm not taking anything away from Beast. I think he was also an incredible player who matured a lot throughout the years. And I think this is one thing that we can see from both of these players is that they became as they matured as people and as players, and as they got older, they almost settled into that position so much better because they weren't just running around doing crazy things anymore. They read the game so well. They were strong in the scrums, and they just really, they just
did effectively what they were picked for.
Yeah. They just brought something extra special to the game for me. And that's what I find incredible about both of them. This was a very difficult decision for me to make. Because I love Beast and I think he's a brilliant player. But I think that obviously what I said about us just puts him that little step ahead for me.
Well, I think it speaks for itself. Yet Beast, had an incredible career and was a very consistent player. And you can only say good things about him as a professional rugby player who applied his trade really, really well.
Yeah. And then I've just got a question for you. So you picked Rassie as your coach and you picked Francois Pienaar as your captain. Do you think their personalities would have worked together? Because that's also a very important point, that your captain and your coach has to get along.
No, absolutely. I mean, a coach has a vision of how he wants to play the game. He studies and analyzes with his team or his co-coaches. They analyze how they're going to, how the opponents play, and they come up with a game plan that counters their strengths and picks out their weaknesses. So the importance of play and coach getting along is vitally important. So, if you look at whether Francois or Rassie would have worked, I don't know. But in terms of who was the best six for me and who was the best coach, that's all I can say. But could they work together? I don't know. If I have to think off the top of my head, I don't think they would. But that's not why we selected them.
Yeah, well, because I cheated way back when, before I even thought about doing this, I picked John as my captain. And I didn't need John Smith or Sia or Francois in my team because John is a strong enough captain to be able to deal with that. And I think he was also a brilliant captain in his day. Could obviously also have opted for Dwayne to be captain of this team. So a lot of the times the people said that they picked those three captains because they were such strong leaders, even though they weren't the best in their position, their leadership just put them ahead and over the other players. But I think we've got such strong leaders like Dwayne and Jean in my team that I didn't need to pick any of them to be a strong enough leader. So.
Well, yeah, Woude, it's not every day you find good leaders. I mean, leaders are really born into that position. So a good leader is few and far between. And similarly, you can be a good leader, but you don't also necessarily have to be the best player. Your leadership skills is what defines you for that purpose and that role.
Yeah. But in the team that I've now picked, you've got Victor, you've got Dwayne, and you've got Jean de Villiers. So I didn't need to wangle a captain in there. I wangled it in weeks ago. And obviously
sneaky.
You could go for Dwayne, but for me, I'm absolutely in love with Jean de Villiers, and I think he's absolutely great, and that's why he's my captain. And I think Jean and Rassie would actually get along quite well. So there are our final teams, and I think mine wins. My team would beat your team.
Right, so, game on.
Yeah, game on. I think we should have like a fantasy game or like those FIFA games, computer games, or what do you call those things that the kids play these days? I think we should.
What's it? Nintendo and
or whatever.
Xbox.
Yeah. So if any of the listeners out there do please disagree with us on anything, please let us know and who your team would be. But for now, I think let's go to some questions for James. Dave, do you have any questions for us? I did. Okay, there we go. Lefika Morobe says, getting so emotional with this conversation. I love how rugby brings us so close. I've never met James, but it feels like I've had so many cold ones with him over this great game.
Well, that is such a nice compliment. Jeez,
James is
that's
not such a nice person, Lafika. You're not missing anything.
Thank you, my friend. The compliment is taken with open arms.
But it's absolutely so right about that whole thing. It really brings people together. And even though we might fight and disagree and have very, very heated arguments about it, it always just at the end of the day, you can always just go and watch a great game of rugby and have a beer and have a cold one or a glass of wine or a glass of water if you want, whatever it might be. So
well, the nice thing with sport is you don't have to know somebody. But you can always start the conversation of talking about sport.
So
and then move on to the other stuff.
So my mom and I were in Spain last year in Barcelona when we had the first world opening game for South Africa against New Zealand. And we were in Barcelona and we went to an Irish pub watching a game between New Zealand and South Africa. And as we walked in, it was raining, so we ran into this bar, and there were a whole group of people sitting with South African jerseys on. There were some other New Zealanders and Australians sitting on the other side. And it was just so great being in this atmosphere. And all of a sudden, everyone was just mates in the bar. And and that's what
that's the power of sport. And we've got to that's the power of sport. Not only creating brand awareness and building brands for large corporations, but it does unite people. It brings people, you don't have to like each other or know each other, but you can have a point of departure where you can land up having a debate or conversation. God forbid you don't have an argument, but you can start relating to people through sport. I mean, what a better mechanism.
Yeah. The only unfortunate thing was they didn't have cross lights in this bar. Okay, so Ntokozo Majosi says, Matt Fields over Lewitt any day. Lewitt has been inconsistent for the past couple of years and then came back to life just before the World Cup. James, any thoughts on that?
I think that is a spot-on statement. Victor was always very, very consistent. Lewitt blew hot and cold, and I don't even think it's a debate. It would be Victor all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what's up next, Dev? Lefika Moroba says, I only disagree with James on the fullback pick. There's only one Rolls Royce of fullbacks. James, before you take this one, I think my reason for also, like I said, I had my reasons before for picking Percy over him, but I think kind of the one thing that set me apart is he played in the unprofessional era and and Percy played in the professional era. So I think that kind of also just, I was like, which one should I go for? And I was on the fence the whole time and I had to pick side. But that's for me, absolutely the impact that he had, most complete fullback. He was brilliant from that position.
Yeah, look, Andre had a big left boot on him. Percy, also was a big kicker. Andre had great vision. I don't think Percy's vision could match Andre's. Andre was he was a good stepper, and he had pace, and he was an intelligent rugby player. If you go look at his performances, he even played the semi-final with a broken hand. Yeah. But statistically, you have to go with Percy, and I hate statistics. But Andre Joubert, the Rolls Royce, is one of the greatest fullbacks we've ever had.
Yeah. Okay, what's up next? Mr. Majosi says, Rassie transformed a team that everyone had lost hope in. I would go for him as coach. Jake is a close second for me. Now, I know you would definitely not agree with the Jake part. With the Rassie part, you would agree, but not with Jake. Correct. Because I don't think you have ever really given us your true feelings about Jake White.
Yeah, if you go, look at his track record. Wherever he's gone, he's always left there with a lot of destruction. The clubs eventually end up collapsing and falling way down the log and the ladder. He always leaves every environment with a bitter taste in his mouth and leaves the other people on the other side with an even more bitter taste. And this is just allegations. I hear there's only 7 of his 2007 box that actually talk to him or communicate with him still today. So obviously there must be something wrong with his functionality, or he has a split personality. And I think that will also, only time will tell with how he's going to land up leaving the Bulls or how long he will stay there for.
And
you can have a big checkbook, but it doesn't mean you're going to win all the games.
And your personal experience with him?
Yeah, look, I had fond memories of him as a schoolboy, but I haven't really engaged much with him. So I think I'll be unfair to comment, and I'd like to reserve my comment on Jake.
Since when?
Since the night.
This is not what I'm paying you for.
It's always the goddamn Jake show. Me, myself, and I. It's always about Jake, he's very clever with wrapping himself around a lot of people, insulating himself. And let's see, he's done that now at the Bulls. He's got this big management team with assistant coaches and analysis and scrum coaches and backline coaches and forward coaches, etc. But let's see how much independence, and if he's going to be as transparent as Rassie was able to be, to listen to his co-coaches and their opinions and their advice. So only time will tell for Jake. But I just think Jake is too self-centered a person, bit of a narcissist, in my opinion. Good enough for you.
Yes.
There we go. You wanted one, you got one.
Joel didn't just beat New Zealand, he beat the world. That goal. Look, if he didn't get that great pass from US, he wouldn't have been able to have that drop goal. So we can't give all the credit to Joel. We have to give some credit to that absolutely brilliant pass that US gave him.
That's the beauty of the game. It's called the 15-man game.
Yeah. Dave, what's next? Farida, Mr. Majosi again, to cause the thanks. Farida Priya is the best to ever do it. Now, I had a discussion with a lot of people because obviously it's this whole thing between US and Faria and US and Faria. And I think Faria obviously learned a lot from US and he played under US and he kind of took what US did, because US obviously brilliant player that he was, and defensively the structures had to change around him because he was such a big guy. And I think Faria just kind of made it version 2.0. His box kicking was absolutely brilliant. I think his all-round game was very, very good. So I think from that point of view, it would definitely be Faria. And if I look at our team, Faria would probably be one of the very few players that I would pick in a World 15. I don't think there wouldn't be a lot of other players that I would pick over another person from another country.
Yeah, look, Farida Priya was in a league of his own for his time. I mean, the US, the Van der Westhuizen still dive past. That's how far apart the generations are. So, I've seen many picks on World 15s, and US name has come up more times than Farida Priya's name has come up.
Yeah, obviously US's impact, but we're also, I guess, a little bit nostalgic, could be from that point of view. But if you look at just playing wise, for me, the one thing that I don't like about US is he couldn't pass both sides and he couldn't pass with the deck. And that's one thing that Farida Priya was absolutely brilliant at, passing that ball, bulleting that ball off the deck. And that's what I want to see from a scrum half.
Well, I've seen some of the modern generation players, very few of them can pass left and right.
I agree with you.
But point taken. Actually, very, very valid point.
Yeah, yay.
So based on that statement, and the box kick in, then we would say that Faria would be ahead of Joost.
Yes, I win. Okay, next up.
I love so nice to you tonight.
Senzo Sateva says Johan Smith versus George Smith versus Richie McCaw. There's a triple threat match of note.
Sure.
So, but Jean and Richie didn't play the same position. They did play the same number, but obviously South Africa, our blind side and open side flank is on the other side of the field. So they were played against each other because they played on the same side. But if you want to be specific from the number and the position that they played, Richie McCaw would be the same as Skalkberger.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Look, all three players were big impact players. They were game changers. They were disruptive at ruck time, at maul time. They carried the ball. They were defensively sound. Again, those three players are what I always say is look what you do when you don't have the ball. And those three players were as good with ball in hand as when they never had the ball in hand, if that makes sense.
I just also think for me, kind of no one can really be compared to Richie McCaw. I think he was, great. Richie was probably one of the best players of all time. We can't disagree with that. But when Heinrich so was playing, like he was talking about the All Blacks games, I think that was the first time that Richie actually had real competition at the breakdown from a South African and Springbok point of view. That was the first time that he didn't get every single turnover and that he actually had to work for the turnover. So 100% really gave him a run for his money from that point of view.
That he certainly did. Again, what made Richie good, like what made Sean Fitzpatrick good, they knew how to push the boundaries and push the limits. And that was where they would get clever. Remember, it's not only always about skill, it's about intelligence as well.
Yeah. Okay, what's up next? Lefika Marobe says, as a man who learned his rugby in the Free State, I'm very upset about your previous lack of faith in Johan Erasmus, Woude. Rusty Erasmus, though? Who's Johan Erasmus?
That's his name.
Is that his real name? Johan?
Yeah. There we go. Now you learned something, Clark.
That's how little I really had faith in him. I didn't like him at the Cheetahs. I didn't like him when he was coach of the Stormers. I think he probably only when he went overseas he had to learn to adapt and change and But for me, Rusty has changed, and I've said this many times, and I've been very open about the fact that I accept that I was wrong, and he made me change my mind about him.
Well, I'm glad that you're so humble. But if you look at Rusty, when he took over, we were number 8 in the world. I mean, we were a Springbok with 3 legs, maybe even 2 legs. And he turned us around to be world champions again, number 1 in the world. So I think that speaks for itself. So next time, Woude, be more cautious what you presume.
No, he changed, and he betrayed me in my mind. Cynthia Sativa says, I think I would have taken Butch James over Pollard. Butch looked like he was about it. You want to take this one?
No.
Okay.
I only want to participate with clever questions.
So, look, for me, Senzo, Butch was solid enough in 2007. He didn't set the world on fire, but I think without Farida Priya feeding him good ball, he wouldn't have been able to play whatsoever. I don't think he would have been able to step up to it. And the only reason why he was really there was because Jaco van der Westhuizen didn't really step up to it and up to test level. But there's not much more I can say about Butch. There was nothing special that he did. I think, like I said, without Farida, he would not have been close.
You're overcooking the stew. You're saying way too much now.
Okay, done. Move on. I really want to know what you think about Butch now. And so Josie says, I think that one of the reasons why Peter de Villiers doesn't get the credit that he deserves is because he inherited Jake's team and didn't really change much to it. Well,
yeah, I think around Peter de Villiers, I think it's. I mean, he had a proven track record. He was a good coach. He came through the ranks. He wasn't that bad a performer as a coach while he coached the Springboks, but I think he became his own worst enemy in the way he presented himself to the press and his antagonism of the press and his sarcasm. And I've learned that you never go to war with a man who buys his ink in barrels. So in other words, the pen is always mightier than the sword.
Okay. Poor PD. And we've got a last question coming up for you, James. And so Josie says, Kuni Oosthuizen is a better number 3 than Malherbe. Would you want to scrum next to Kuni Oosthuizen?
Yeah, again, they both, they don't get me excited, but I think Kuni Oosthuizen definitely carries the ball a lot more. and his overall visibility is a lot more significant than France. I just think France, it's at some stages, I watch his movements on the field, and he's just nowhere. He's just, all he does is focus. He's one-dimensional. Scrum, 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 scrum.
Just before we go to Mbolelo, who would you pick at number 3 then to play for the Springboks now? To play against the British and Irish Lions?
Well, I mean, you would have to. I mean, you'd probably more than likely. But I don't know. Time changes. It's a while away. You could get some rising stars that come out of the blue. But yeah, I think there is no one else, to be quite honest. So I think it would be France, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Well, James, thank you. I'm glad I won my argument between US Van der Westhuizen and Fourie de Pre. I'm going to remind you of this moment forever, because I made you change your mind about US
Listen, it's Women's Month this month, Woude. I gave you a gift.
It doesn't matter. I made you change your mind.
It's good stuff. It's a month of empathy, is it?
That's it.
And Woude, I thought you made a cracking point on the Fourie de Pre thing. You guys were on fire tonight. I had a radio legend, by the way, while Dave and I were pushing the buttons in the background, complimenting you guys, and she's absolutely loving it. So brilliant. By the way, had an All Black legend, James. You'll know Murray Mexted. He's been texting me and loving the show as well.
Oh wow, yeah. No, he's one of the icons.
He really, fortunate to have coached me at school, and we've maintained a relationship. But he was absolutely loving the show. So I thought you guys were on fire tonight, and you made some absolutely brilliant points.
You need a good co-host, and that's what Woude is. So when it's easy to banter, then the conversation flows. So and yourself as well.
Stop it, guys.
Stop it! I like it.
James Dalton, hey, man, Jeffy's finest. You're the guy, Woude. You were brilliant tonight, and I like. You know what? I got to be honest with you, because I was going bananas in the background with some of the selections, and it's the beauty of sport. I loved the Donny Rousseau pick at 8. I've always been out on. For Mullen, and I really, Sabertooth, I think people underestimate his performance in that. Besides the Cueto to ankle tap, I thought he was unbelievable in the whole tournament, ball carrying heavy. In fact, if anything, his performance in the first game against England, people must remember we beat England 36-0, by the way. Rousseau's performance in that was one of the most sensational performances you'll ever see from a loose forward. So great teams, both just legendary.
Well,
so
thank you to both of you. And I actually have a bit of a lump in my throat that this is our last show.
It's our last show for now. Don't you worry, we will. We'll take a little break next week. But
bigger, stronger, better than ever.
Let's go. That's the way to end. That's the way to end the Skip Pass, Woude. Great having you in, James. Hey, tonight. Hey. Probably our best show we've ever done. Honestly, this segment tonight, the best part of CliffCentral sport we've ever done. I have to say, absolutely brilliant.
Just before you kick us off from Mbolelo, whose team will win between mine and James's?
You had Handré Pollard. You're out. You're dead to me. you are dead to me. Forget it. Yeah,
there we go.
Come on.
Wise words spoken by a wise man.
Nah, come on. We're all adults.
It's like Lionel Messi leaving by Barcelona. It's the same.
That's what I mean. Come on, let's not. I thought. I gave the compliments, but when you have Handré Pollard, Woude, I do take you seriously. But when you have Handré Pollard as a World Cup great, and we had, I'd even take James's mate Butch James over Pollard. To be honest with you. I'd even take James as the old Maritzburg mate. Oh, no. Pollard, I'm out. No, thanks. I'd rather, no. Not in my,
you either like drinking cold drinks or you drink hot coffee. It's hot or cold. And that's what he is. You don't.
Yeah.
Is it going to be cold drink or is it going to be hot? You know?
Well bloody said. And well said. Vodi, your thoughts?
I'm not going to comment on either of your statements right now because I think it's silly.
No, listen, I'm getting older, and James, that was a great example. You're either drinking ice fridge water or you're drinking coffee.
I don't drink coffee, so I only drink the ice fridge water.
Yeah, but I listen, I want room temperature. Like, be 7 out of 10 all the time. You can't be through the floor or through the roof. I'm too old for that now. You know, it's like having 3 girlfriends.
It's like dealing with a bipolar person. You know, are they taking their meds today?
My God, on that note, the great James Dalton, huh? Jeez. Unbelievable. Vodi, great
Peace,
stuff. James,
love and respect, guys. God bless all of you.
Yeah.
God bless our country.
Can't wait to have them back. God bless our country indeed. James Dalton, Woude Muller. Bloody-tastic. Yeah, well, listen. No. So, folks, we're going to take a break, of course, we are off from next week, Tuesday. So we'll finish up at the end of the month. And then we will take a sabbatical next week. 1 or 2 things will change in terms of the production. You'll hopefully see a little bit. We'll add a little bit more to the animation. Hopefully something's on the other side, having a few interesting conversations in the back. So, Vodi, we won't see you next week. Of course, we'll see you the week after that. So, absolutely tonight, hands down. And I have to say it to somebody who's viewed the show, obviously from the beginning. I'm on every show. Tonight was comfortably the best. That was the best content we have done since we began this awesome project. So really sensational stuff. And hey, as James was saying, that's why it's in his case, a 15-man game. That's why it's a team game. So brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And very fortunate to have this sort of quality with us. And then of course, Dave in the background. So Vodi, see you in 2 weeks. To everybody, tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow, by the way. Big show for me is last year. You may have heard me say it a couple of times. We produced an incredible, I think, a piece of art that'll come out next year. The Kusasa Stars went to Sweden, the biggest football tournament in the world, the Gothia Cup. Right, we were part of the team, or I was fortunate enough I co-wrote a documentary, and it turned out to be an absolute, a banger. I thought it was a banger, and I don't mind tooting my own horn, and I won't apologize for it. Turned out great. So tomorrow, the gentleman who started the project. And of course, someone we've had on, the air foremost, the leading. I mean, he's much revered in Sweden. Jens Littorin will be on with us tomorrow. George Frett, the man who started the project, cannot wait to bring you those 2 gentlemen, electrifying figures, one from the UK, one from Sweden. And we will talk about sports and everything it does for us globally. 12-year-old kids, sensational. I'll cut a clip, Dave will cut a clip tomorrow and put out a little thing. Otherwise, go and check out Kusasa Stars. You can see some of the clips. They are available on the YouTube machine. For tonight, though, ladies and gentlemen, I am MKT. That was a legendary combo of Woude Muller and James the Bullet Dalton. For tonight, thank you for joining us. From me at CliffCentral Sport, at CliffCentral, and of course at large, our production partners who are absolutely grateful for. Big Shot Media, go and check them out. The best in the business, right? The best in the business, CliffCentral Sport. When they come together with Big Shot Media, we do the best work on the planet. For tonight, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a different ball game. I'm MKT. See you in the morrow.